So this is a really hot topic right now, especially given the Great Resignation. Welcome, everybody. My name is Gina Covarrubias. I'm an engineering life coach. My function is to help engineers and other STEM professionals transform their careers from status quo, wherever you are right now, to amazing and excellent. And I teach people how to do that. So tonight, I want to talk to you about whether or not it might be the right time for you to leave your job. Because sometimes when you don't like your job or you're unsatisfied with the way things are going, it is time to leave. Sometimes it is not time to leave. And I don't want you to leave for the wrong reasons. So I'm going to give you a couple of critical ideas to think about tonight before you decide to up and quit your job. So thank you for joining me. And let's look at a quick outline of what I'm going to talk about tonight. In section 1, we're going to go over core values. What does that mean and how does that apply to you? In section 2, we're going to talk about what you do in your job, and we're also going to make a distinction between what you do and how you do it. And in section 3, this is applicable to any of you who either want your dream job or you just want something better than where you are right now. And we'll wrap it up with a great conclusion. So the first thing I want you to consider is the degree to which your job aligns with your core values. Now let's look at what this means. First of all, let's define what core values are. According to Indeed.com, and you can find many different definitions online. According to Indeed, core values are a set of fundamental beliefs, ideals, or practices that inform how you conduct your life, both personally and professionally. So core values serve as your anchor in life. They are your guide. They are like your North Star when all else seems to go wrong, or if you're in a really sticky situation, or if you have to make a big decision. It can be very helpful to understand what are your core values. They represent who you are fundamentally as a person. And for each one of us, we all have very different core values. And I would suggest you do a very quick search online, just type in core values, and you'll see different sites that have many, many, many different core values listed. And I would recommend you try to choose maybe 10 or 12 at the most that really, really resonate with you. Now, on this slide, I went ahead and picked out some random core values that I found online. Now, certainly there are hundreds more than this, but this might be a good starting point for you to take a look at some of these words. And as you look through them, some of them are really going to stand out and resonate more than others. Now, for me personally, I can take a look at the word transparency. For me, when I used to work as an engineer back in the day, transparency was a very big deal to me, but I didn't know it. Transparency was very important to me because I wanted to know what other people were doing. I wanted to know what my employer was doing and why. And I wanted to try to put pieces together to try to figure out how can I help the organization. And there were people I came across that were not very transparent in their work. And it really bothered me at the time, but I didn't really understand why. And of course, looking back now, I can say, oh, transparency was a core value of mine. Let's see, another one that resonates with me, hard work. I've always believed in being a hard worker, and I always thought other people should be hard workers, and that was not always the case. So anyhow, I would encourage you to go through this exercise. Pick out 10 or 12 core values that really resonate with who you are, and they really matter to you. So the reason core values are important is because sometimes they're going to be compromised in the workplace. And when your core values are compromised, that can lead you to self-doubt. It can lead you to lower self-confidence, lower self-esteem. It might give you some dissonance. It might lead to some mental friction. And you might have this gut feeling or this intuitive feeling of, something's not right, or maybe I don't quite belong here. And you might not be able to put your finger specifically on one thing. It could be that perhaps your core values are not in alignment with your employer's core values. So the question that I would like you to think about is, where is your threshold? You will probably never find a job that aligns completely 100% with all of your core values. That probably won't happen, and that's fine. But the question is, where's your threshold? At what point is enough for you? So the takeaway from section 1 here is that the more your core values are not aligned with your employers, the more reasonable it may be for you to consider other employment. Know what your threshold is. And I really like this picture here. Don't live as a fraud. Right now, the phrase imposter syndrome seems to be very popular. Imposter syndrome refers to the idea that you are very worried about what other people are going to think of you. Well, this is kind of the flip side to imposter syndrome. Don't live as a fraud. If you know that you're living as a fraud, it's going to burn you out. It's going to wear you out, and something will have to change eventually. So what you think of yourself is much, much more important than what others think of you. So don't live your life in a fraudulent way, because you will figure yourself out. So what we covered here in section 1 is I want you to consider the degree to which your job aligns with your core values. If they're too far out of alignment, you are not experiencing integrity with yourself, and that will catch up to you. So knowing your core values is really important here. Let's take a look at the next consideration. I want you to consider what you do at work, but also how you do it. This is what I mean. We're going to start with the what you do. What you do, I'm also referring to that as the hard skills. So you might be a designer, you might be a test engineer, you might be a statistician, and so on. Given your current job functions right now, you may take a look at what you're doing and say, you know what, I've got this, I've dominated it, I'm ready to move on to another skill. So maybe you work in an R&D lab and you're telling yourself, you know what, I'm ready to go out there and be a project manager somewhere. I'm ready for a shift and change in duty. What I want you to think about is, to what extent are you satisfying your desire for the hard skills right now? If you are, let's say, a test engineer and you're loving it and you can't see yourself doing anything else, that is wonderful, that's great. You probably don't want to switch to another job. However, if you're a test engineer and you hate it and you would rather sit down and write proposals or write technical papers, maybe you want to be a technical author, that's probably a good indication it's time to change jobs. Now, I'm telling you this, even though it sounds pretty cut and dry. But the distinction here is that this is what you do. This falls under the hard skills category. I want you to compare that to how you do your job. And what I mean by that are the soft skills. Some people refer to them as power skills. Now, I've listed some examples here, and this is a very, very small subset of what soft skills actually mean in the workplace. So look at this list, and I'm sorry, it's a bit wordy, but look at this list and apply it to yourself and ask yourself, how well do you communicate? How is your ability to get along with people in the workplace? How do you react to difficult people? What do you do when you tell yourself my management sucks or I have poor management? What is your attitude like when things go well? What is your attitude like when things don't go well? How do you respond to the crappy situations that don't work out in your favor? What is your level of self-awareness? How much do you blame? Are you flexible in the workplace? Do you know how to adapt to others and to your circumstances? Do you listen? Do you actually stop and hear what other people say, or does your ego take over and tell you that you're right? Do you take ownership over the things that you say? Do you hold yourself accountable to your own decisions? Again, this is a small example of what soft skills mean, but I will tell you, it is the soft skills that can make your life miserable in the workplace. So think about the extent to which your soft skills are triggering your discontent or your urge to leave to another job. And this is really important. So ask yourself, to what extent are the hard skills being satisfied? To what extent, and be honest with yourself. It's easy to fool ourselves here. Sometimes we don't want to face some of our weaknesses or some of our flaws, but be honest with yourself and really try to figure out to what extent are your own soft skills lacking. If that's the reason that you want to jump ship and take another job, I'm here to tell you that is not the solution. It is not going to work. And this is why. We're going to distinguish between what you do and how you do it by calling the hard skills external and the soft skills internal. So your hard skills are external. Those are things that you do. Those are activities and those are tasks. Those are really not controlled by you. Those are controlled by your employer. They're controlled by your management. And the way for you to change the hard skills that you're doing is to essentially switch jobs, which is why it's more cut and dry if you don't like the specific duties that you're doing. So it is more reasonable to quit if you desire to do something completely different. Now, this is different from the soft skills, because I'm here to tell you the soft skills are 100% internal. They are controlled by you. And it might be hard for you to wrap your mind around that idea, but guess what? You get to control the way you think. You get to control the way you respond to people and to situations. You get to control your reactions. That is 100% within your control. Therefore, if the soft skills where you are at work are the trigger for you wanting to leave, then that is not a great reason to leave, because the next job is only going to bring out these same flaws and weaknesses that your current job is bringing out. And I do have a caveat to this. This is really important. And trust me, I have been in this position. So what I just said is that if the soft skills are triggering you to want to quit, quitting is like applying a Band-Aid. And the caveat to this is that if your emotional threshold has been exceeded, if you feel like you need a break from the job, if you feel like you need to quit, if you feel like you might need to go and seek professional help, then that could be a very reasonable time for you to leave this job and look for the next one, or just take some time off. And trust me, I have been there before. I have been in a place where I was burnt out and I was going through depression, despondency. It was definitely something I lived through every single day while I was depressed. Despair and self-loathe. I can identify with all of these. If you are in that sort of position where you've had enough, you feel like you can't take it anymore, You may need some kind of break, whether it's leaving permanently, whether it's taking a little bit of time off, maybe short-term disability. There are options. What I want you to realize is that if you quit because your emotional threshold has been reached, it is only a temporary solution. It's really important to remember. If you take 6 months off work and you don't do work on yourself, if you don't try to figure out what you need to improve with yourself, you're going to take those same issues to your next job and your next job and every job thereafter until you learn how to work on those flaws or weaknesses that you have. And trust me, we all have them. We're all insecure. We're just human. There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay. Just remember, if you switch jobs, that's not going to be a long-term solution, okay? Hope that makes sense. And please, at any point in time, if you have questions or comments about any of this content, put it in the chat box. So the consideration here that I want you to think about is distinguish between what you do and how you do it. The more your soft skills trigger your workplace unhappiness, the less likely it is that other jobs are going to be the solution for you. Let's move on to our third section. We're going to talk about the degree to which you desire your dream job. And for some of you, you just may want a better job. You're not even looking for a dream job. You just want something better than where you are. So let's take a look at that. Imagine for a moment, you go onto some online dating sites and they advertise the following: find the right fit, find the spouse that fits your life, find your dream spouse, or find your perfect partner match. Now, how ridiculous does this sound to you? It sounds pretty ridiculous to me, okay? So here we've got websites that could be promising that you're going to find the right fit, the best match, the right one, whatever you want to call it. Well, guess what? That's what the online world of job searching promises. On Monster, at some point, I saw that they said, find the right fit. Glassdoor last year said, find the job that fits your life. Find your dream job. Find your perfect job match. Okay, this is all nonsense. What I'm here to tell you is what they're not telling you. And that is that just because you may check all the boxes, just because you may have credentials and degrees and certifications, that does not automatically translate to getting your dream job. It does not automatically translate to you getting a good job or a great job. That's not the way it works. But some of these other online platforms would have you believe otherwise. So don't fall for it. It's a bunch of baloney. Striving for an external job to create an internal emotion, such as happiness or fulfillment or security, does not work. And perhaps this might be the most important slide of the whole presentation. So I'm going to repeat what I just said. When you strive for something external outside of you to fulfill an internal feeling or void, it's not going to work. Your internal state of being is a precursor to any external experience you are going to have. And that's why I love this picture here, because what I want you to think about is who you are at your core. Dream jobs are not found. You don't go out there and hunt them down or find them as if you're in a scavenger hunt. They are created, and they are created from the inside out. And that's what I mean by the first bullet. Your internal state of being is always a precursor to any experience you have in the world. The takeaway from this section here is that you attract what you are, not what you want. If you want something great, you have to be great first. That's the way it works. And that means you might have to do a lot of internal work on yourself. okay? And that's not always easy to do, but at least now you know. And this was something I really wish somebody would have told me when I was a young professional and when I was a student. The third consideration here is I want you to consider the degree to which you want a better job or a dream job. Dream jobs are not found. They are created, and they start by what you're manifesting inside of you. Okay? It's really important to know. This leads us to our summary. Let's go over what I've taught you tonight. Number one, the most important relationship you will ever cultivate is the relationship you have with yourself. Know your core values. Always look to your core values to guide you. Number two, I taught you that when you have issues with soft skills in the workplace, changing jobs is not going to resolve that. It's going to take a lot more work to resolve soft skill issues. Number three, what I've taught you is that dream jobs are not found. They are created, and they are created starting from within. That leads us to our final conclusion for tonight. The state of your job can never be better than the state of your being. I want you to really let that soak in. If you are a person who has low self-confidence and you're wishy-washy and you don't know how to make decisions and you don't understand how to be independent or autonomous, that's the kind of career that you are going to see. Doesn't matter where you go, that's what you're going to create for yourself. So it always starts from within. I have a really great quote here that sums this up. If any of you have heard of Quincy Jones, music mogul, music fanatic, and just a brilliant, brilliant person when it comes to music. He says, love, trust, and respect. Your music can never be more or less than you are as a human being. That's the bottom line. So you work on being a good human being first, even before a good musician. He couldn't have said it any better. Love that quote. I hope you refer to it often. I'm here to tell you from personal experience, it is very true. With that, I would love to say thank you for joining me tonight. If you want more free resources, go to my website, deliberatedoing.com. I've got free webinars like this, so check my events page often to see what I have coming up. I have a free newsletter, I have a career blog, and I also have replays of previous webinars that you can watch.